Hello, and how do you do? This is the Operation Fatherhood channel here. Glad to have you for those who will join in or watch later on. Just wanted to do another live channel, a live show rather. And so basically, always trying to be a blessing to my fellow fathers out there and the next generation. That's what the Operation Fatherhood channel is all about. And being a blessing to my children and also keeping myself accountable. A lot of stuff I've, done videos now over a year, just trying to, pass on things that, I hope that I used to say, back when I was married to my ex, I used to tell my dad too. My dad didn't like me talking about death, and dying young and all that stuff. And, saying, I wanted to, be with her, 30 good years and then go meet Jesus, And if you've seen my last video, and I'll put a link to it in the show notes, in the description. If you haven't seen it, it's about my recent divorce. And so I'm going to be touching on that today, kind of life lessons or lessons that I've learned from being separated and recently divorced, and why I'm grateful. Not grateful for my divorce, because it's not something I would be happy about. My man, Gorilla Locks, salute, bro. What's up, man? I always appreciate you, my guy. We don't get a chance to holler at each other much. I need to holler at you more, actually. So I'm gonna try to do a better job about that. But fortunately, we do keep in touch. You all check out my brother Gorilla Locks YouTube channel. I enjoy watching this channel. But this particular live, I want to try to do more live, channels. And let me be honest, I was going to talk about two things. Lessons I've kind of gathered from being recently divorced, one, and then two, appreciated Gorilla Locks, and two, what I'm grateful for, during that trial my life was. So, and I might do more videos on it over time about what happened. I don't want to go into too much detail too early because my children are still young. But I'll touch on that in a second. So first and foremost, why I haven't done, I'm still trying to do more live shows, once a week, try to do, regular video about once a week. The reason I haven't been as consistent on it just yet is because kind of like every other weekend, every, few days, things are still pretty amicable with my ex. And so, when I get my kids, at night and stuff like that, weekends, it's kind of hard to do stuff at night. Cause if I lay down in the bed with them and put them to sleep, I'm like out. I'm tired. And when I have a 5 and a 3-year-old and you sleepy, you are a sleeper. I teach full time and then trying to be with them and then trying to work on a couple side hustles and things of that nature. So, you're just tired, you're just like, you're done for the night. I've told people, oh, hey, I'm going to call you back, whichever. And then they don't hear from me. They're like, yeah, I figured you fell asleep. Like, I'm 36 years old and just passed straight out. So that's one thing. So I'm trying to work on being more consistent with the live show. Let me also say with the live show, for those people who watch, feel free to email me questions or, tell me what you think, what you might want to talk about during the live show. If you have questions, you might want some advice on some things. I'm not the most wisest man in the world. But I, like I said before, this channel is to be a blessing to my fellow fathers. And, ladies watch too. My mother watches all the time. And other people in general, and like I said, the next generation. Okay, so there's that, right? So then two, again, the thing is, divorce, man. So like I said before, my kids are 5 and 3 years old. At that age, it really didn't strike them that there was something happening, back at the end of May of this year. And I waited a long time. I remember my father was like, my second mother was like, look, I know you on social media. I know you got your channel and all that stuff. Do not say anything. Some people, when they get like separated, divorced, they post in their little Facebook status, recent divorced or whatever it is, or they make a post about it. I did a quick little post or whichever where I was like, signatures in, and it's over or something like that, and I, posted my weight and, me sweating in the gym. So I'm trying to get back into the habit of that. But, the thing is, I remember kind of like the one thing with my father, and this is, and again, I bring up my father a lot. It's not to dismiss, the women in my life, my mothers, my mother, my second mother. My second mother's my stepmother, but I don't like the name, the stepmother, because of the connotation that was with it when I was growing up. With Disney Channel's stepmother's always this evil woman, so I call her my second mother, and she's been a blessing to me, obviously, and then there's my surrogate mother, who's I'm really close with and tight with, and um, I appreciate that, Gorilla Locks. So that's my goal. That's what I was getting to, which is, you know, being very careful, with what I say about my ex. And that kind of leads into another thing in a minute that I've learned. So the reason I don't go into specifics on necessarily how it ended, I try to be very, very careful that it doesn't become one of those like, well, she did this and she did that, and she ain't, shit, and all that stuff, cursing and all that kind of stuff. And I'm not trying to do all that. The one thing like I said before, I learned a lot from my mothers, but this is a fatherhood channel, with love and due respect to ladies. But my pops, man, is like, I was born out of wedlock. My mother got pregnant with me in what's that, late '84, and I was born in July of '85. And my father, from what I remembered over the years, he never like was dogging my mother out. I don't remember him ever having like these like terrible statements where he's like, your mama ain't this and your mother ain't that, and I don't respect her, and it wasn't gonna work no way because she was this, that. He never did any of that. Like I'll be surprised every now and again, and it's mostly famous people, but I've seen sometimes like famous guys who, they have a bad relationship with their baby mama. And like they say some horrible junk about, that woman. And then that woman says some horrible junk about them, right? And sometimes those relationships end so tragically and horribly and whatnot. Ours ended tragically, in my humble opinion. My ex will have her own views on it, but I'm not gonna be out in the street like dragging her name around. That ain't me, and I don't. And I am a religious, Christian dude, not perfect, but I do still believe in the Lord, and Jesus the Christ is my Lord and Savior. I don't think that's appropriate for me to go out and dogging, one of his own, even if I don't agree with how our, marriage ended. I can honestly say, and I've told people, and I said, I will tell my kids when they get older, I never cheated, physically had another woman in the room, ever. Well, that don't mean I was perfect, in that sense of like, I never looked at another woman or never had, negative thoughts. I can't say that. But I never physically had another woman in my relationship with my ex, and I never was abusive. That means, verbally, emotionally, or physically. Didn't put my hands. So that's not where I was raised. And like I said before, I saw some of that stuff when I was a kid, thank God, but not by necessarily my parents. But, abusive relationships, around me, where I grew up and stuff like that in Southern Alabama. And that's not what I wanted to do with my ex, But anyway, so I say all that to say, transitioning and kind of into things that I've, learned, which is, so one, being very, very careful what I do say, even on this channel, is honestly, as transparent. I try to be about myself. I try to be very, very careful what I say about her, and even about myself to some degree, because I am a teacher, and you never know if I have a student that kind of trickles their way onto my channel one day or something. I don't really say something too much about my own channel in school, but I don't want, like I said before, my goal is not to ever dog her or dog her around or roll her name in the mud. And also put our, personal business, because some of that stuff gets really, really personal, and you just have to be careful. Sometimes people can hear personal information. Like, I'm pretty transparent. I'm pretty open and pretty blunt. Like, if I wasn't a teacher in the school, I would probably say like some of the stuff that were problems for my ex with me, but some stuff I had to be very careful with. Because like I said, you can't have students knowing every, bit about your, your life or personal problems. So there's that. So like I said, I have to be careful with that. There's always going to be something I try to keep in the back of my mind. And then, some of the things I learned. So like, one of the things for me was, and I even wrote it down on wrote it down for myself. So I made sure that when I was on the night, I'd, bring these things up. So, one of the things was, focusing on myself. And that's in the demise of my marriage. So, like I said, that's another reason why I try not to blast her, because I joined a divorced dads group. And and that's twofold, because I'm gonna talk about another point in a minute. But why I'm grateful. But another point being is, I remember one father was like, a lot of y'all in this group, amen, Gorilla Locks, never divulge too much. He said, everybody's listening. That's true. And not everybody is going to be understanding to what you're saying when you're being that transparent. Now, me, like I said before, if I wasn't teaching, I'm pretty open. I would be blunt about like what her issues were with me, and and I'll tell you a few of them. Like I said, not completely, but anyway, my point being is focus on myself, right? So one, although I wasn't the one to initiate the divorce and know that I want it, I'm not gonna sit there and act like I was just like the best, husband, this side of heaven or something like that. So what I mean by that is, I never made enough money. I talked about work ethic. I believe I had a work ethic, but it wasn't quite like where it should have been. I'm 36 now. At the time when she said it was, the week of my daughter's third birthday, 2 months before I was going to turn 26, I was 35. And I did videos about work ethic and stuff like that. So my thing was, I had left teaching before 2020. This is during that pandemic year, right at the very beginning of the very beginning of the pandemic. I was like leaving January 2020. And when I left it, although in my mind, I was like, okay, here's my logic, right? Because men, we try to be, even we make bad decisions, which is I did. I'm definitely going to be honest about that. You try to make these, what you feel are logical reasons, right? So I'm leaving teaching because I was not happy with it, or at least the situation I was in at the time. I was like overwhelmed, with the teacher certification program that I was in, whatever. So, but when I left teaching, in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, well, what I'm going to do is, I knew I had enough of my retirement, and stuff like that at that time. I'm going to transition to finding something that I'm really going to love. I'm really going to enjoy. I'm working on the, different ideas I want to do and stuff like that, because I was trying to write, I was trying to do this, I was trying to do that, podcasting, all that stuff. But what I did is kind of one thing I had learned, I can't remember what videos I was watching, but I learned that, when I left, when you leave something, you leave a job or whichever, you want to leave for something going up. Maybe even something, leaving then something, kind of going sideways or staying on the same level you are financially, whatever. I left and kind of went down. So when I left, talking about, I'm going to, do my, use the money in my retirement. I had enough that would, keep us, like the money I was bringing in. I had that amount to keep us, throughout this, the rest of that, 2020 year, not thinking like, okay, but what if I don't find that thing, because I'm leaving, not to another job. I'm just leaving, not with anything else. I'm just like, okay, well, that money's going to keep us covered. Not thinking how, that made my ex felt, like my dad had told me, my kid's godfather told me, like, you probably made her feel unsafe. You are now leaving, something with, benefits, retirement, consistent paycheck, whichever. And now she's going to be like the breadwinner, and you don't have any backup. You're just saying like, oh, this is going to ride us out through the rest of the year. Okay, well, what about after that? That was me being foolish. That's just real talk. So in that aspect, and then I went into like a job where I was working at a hotel overnight for a couple nights, weekend with part-time. I was still had my education check coming in, because, you get, not my education, but my retirement check coming in. But again, still, it needs to be consistent money, what I was making and what I was going to be providing in the future, right? And then I went to a Staples job part-time. And again, these are part-time jobs. They weren't full-time, right? So again, focusing on myself, the demise also was like, her saying, dang, man, he's not going to ever, like, we've been together almost 10 years and he's still not even making what I'm making, nor is he making more than what I'm making, right? And even though, you say stuff like, till death do us part, goodness, for good or bad health, sickness and health, rich or poor, all that stuff. You say it, but I think a lot of people, and this is again, me not blasting my ex, I think a lot of people really don't take that in consideration. That's a hard thing to really like, okay, I'm really going to do this when the time comes. Till she felt unsafe financially. Like, okay, he's not gonna make it. He just ain't gonna do it. And so I could just do better or bad on my own, and I won't talk about her own situation right now because she got it, whatever. So again, focusing on myself, right? So financially, job wise, didn't do what I was supposed to do. Physically, my health, got diabetes. Okay, when was drinking a bunch of drinks, she didn't like that. She buy them for me sometimes, but she didn't like me drinking, sodas all the time, kicking this stuff back like it's going out of style. I'm not taking care of my health, right? And there are spiritual reasons for that too. If you are so-called Christian, myself included, and amen, Gorilla Locks, we've all made bad decisions. And the thing is, going back with, and I'm gonna touch back on what you just said in the second, Gorilla Locks, because I'm trying my best not to make this past like 20. I was really trying to stick on 20 minutes, but at least 25. I don't want to go too like 30 and all that stuff. I think that's too long, even for live shows. But the thing is like, spiritually, scripture, for those of us who are Christian, scripture talks about this. I'm not my own. I wish I was better with the actual verse I could tell you, but I'm not my own. This is supposed to be the temple of the Holy Spirit, us Christians, are saying, or in believing, right? Because that's scripture. The thing about that is that if I'm eating healthy, drinking healthy, not exercising, not doing what I'm supposed to be doing, I'm not saying that you can't say that you're not a Christian because we all have our struggles, but that also is could look bad to your, spouse, right? If you're trying to say, hey, I'm trying to live a Christian life, but I'm not doing it with my eating habits. Okay. And excuse me, the Christian faith is not just, on the outside when you go to church and stuff like that. It is physically, it's emotionally, it's spiritually, it's eating right, it's talking right, it's really trying to fight and think right. It is so much stuff that I think the Western version of it, I'm not dissing or talking about Protestantism, Catholicism, or Orthodox Christianity, which is what the road that I'm on right now. But just that too many Christians have kind of it's become such a cultural thing that is not really trying to follow along with scripture. People can make fun of Mennonites and the Amish all they want to, but at least they're trying. Like you can look at them and say, hey, okay, at least they're trying to get it right. You might say some of it's legalism, but anyway, I digress. So anyway, my point being is that I just made a lot of bad decisions. So bad decisions with my health and bad decisions financially, job wise, so that's at least two things. And spiritually, I wasn't leading her like I should have been. I wasn't tithing like I should have been. I wasn't being the man like I really should have been, which is kind of my mindset has really changed on that. I'll probably do a video on that later on. Been watching a lot more, kind of men channels, if you will, really. And I even looked at, like, I think the guy's name is Robert Kiyosaki. I think he did Rich Dad Poor Dad. And I think I'm going to look at a video he made with, I think, Rich Cooper or somewhere. He was talking about my ex-wife left me because I was a fat beta. And I was like, yeah, me too. I think that's probably part of it. Even if, she didn't use those words. She didn't use the word simp, but that's basically what I was. And I'll probably go on to that more later on too. But again, focusing on myself. So focusing on myself as far as the demise goes. And when you talk, Gorilla Ox, pointed out, we've all made bad decisions. The thing also, another reason about focusing on myself for myself, right? When he talked about, he put in the chat, we've all made some bad decisions, is looking at myself and realizing, okay, start with me first. Because like in that divorce dads group I was talking about, a lot of guys will be like, oh, my ex did this and my ex did that, and she left and she's this and she's that and all this and one of the guys is like, okay, yeah, it probably is on her to why the divorce happened, but what did you do? It takes two to tango. And even if it was, and there are some guys and some women who have had their husbands leave that can honestly say, hey, I tried. I tried to do this, I tried to do that, I tried to show them, I tried to whatever, and it really is on them. But some of us, are not honest in saying, okay, well, I did this. I can see why they might have gotten upset. If I take a walk in their shoes, I did this. I can see why that was problematic for them. And that's why I want to do. I need to look at myself first. Okay. I can't, just look at her and say, you terrible woman, you left the marriage. So you're right. Gorilla Locks, we've all made bad decisions, but it takes a real, let me throw this little quote in there. It takes a real man and a real woman to face themselves in the mirror and say, okay, I made those bad decisions. Now let me go fix myself for myself. And remember thinking to myself, that's what, I think is hard for a lot of people, is being real with yourself. Taking, when people are critiquing you, like, I had some, my father and my kid's godfather was real with me. Like, yeah, man, like, I mean, my kid's godfather, he grew up with, where I think I don't know if his mom worked, stayed at home or worked or not. But, he's like, like, I don't know, he's not like an alpha male in that sense, like a swole guy. But he's a, farmer. He's a, couple different things. I won't go into details about, but he works, he provides the bacon, and his wife, is a wonderful godmother of my kids. And I love her to death. And she's, at home, quote unquote, and doing a lot of work with that. Right. But he is, the one that takes care of the household. Financially, he brings home the bacon. My dad and my father, same thing. Now, both of those women could go off and be career women because they have degrees and education and intelligence and and had careers before they stopped, and then before they went into the home. But they decide, it's probably, I imagine with their husbands, at least I know my second mother, my father did. He talked about it. My mother decided to go homeschool my brothers and be an at-home wife. And the thing about that is that, the thing about that is that for most men, from especially those born in the 60s, both these guys born in the 60s, that's kind of like almost how it's supposed to go. Now, my father was like, I remember at one point in time, he probably was like, yeah, my second mother really could make a good living. So he probably was trying to, I don't know if he was trying, the whole story, but he's probably trying to be like, you can go ahead and go back and work if you want to. But, he really was being the man, if you will. Now, that's not popular in today's culture. I know. But here was a man, here were men being men. And so for my kid's godfather, they were like, he was kind of like, I remember he said to me, like, you were kind of like the woman in the relationship. And although I disagree with him in the sense of a woman, I'm just like, no, I mean, the way I grew up, my father, changed my brothers too. I think pretty sure he changed me. I lived with my mother in my earliest years. He washed clothes, he cooked, he did all that stuff too. But what my, kid's godfather was, I think, pointing out is that, again, I never made more money than her. I never was like, okay, this is what we're going to do. This is how a man lead. But then I go back to where I should have, in the beginning of our marriage, really had a discussion with it. Like, we both were Christian, still are. Okay, so what is it? What do you think it means for me to lead you? And if we're in disagreement on that, maybe we shouldn't have got married, right? Or maybe we shouldn't get married. Because for me, the one thing I learned from my parents a long time ago, you fight for your marriage. Because again, when you do that marriage, they put them words together. Let what God puts together, let no man put asunder. I think I'm using that word right. Okay, so that means what? Marriage is real. Okay, a man leaves his parents, cleaves to his wife. This is a holy thing. It's a divine thing. So when you're leaving it, like us getting a divorce, I pray. I'm not perfect in my prayer, but but it's grown since that she was talking about she was done with the marriage back in May, and I'm just like, Lord, I'm not perfect. Still my failures, still working on them. Please don't let us have heavy consequences, punishment for breaking that up. And that's it. Oh man, I wish I could have more time to go in that because it's going on 23 minutes already. But I wish I could go more into why I think divorce is so high, even among so-called Christians. Because the Christians today, in at least Western culture, from what I'm seeing, we are as influenced by the society and outside culture as more than it's influenced by us. So we doing what they're doing. That's why our divorce rate is so high, because we just, well, part of it, I'm not saying completely. Part of it, I think, is because we're just like, well, if it gets difficult, if it gets hard, you can always get a divorce. Yeah, whatever. It is what it is. And then I've heard people make the quote or statement like, oh yeah, so well, not every marriage is made in heaven. What the heck does that even mean? Like, and I think partially I get what people are trying to say is that sometimes marriages, for the religious Christian, right, is not necessarily, thank you, Gorilla Locks. I appreciate you, bro. We had the combo that day, and the reason we really let the shortcomings. Oh yeah. We had a great conversation at Gorilla Locks. We sure did, brother. But I I think, like I said before, that, getting divorced, like we did, I think there could be so many consequences from that. Um, and I'll probably make another video about at least one consequence that I can see. Thinking of at least when it comes to our kids, but I really pray for our children as much as possible. I wanted them to have an example of a couple that lasted, their biological parents. I'm not just talking about, like, she gets remarried, I get remarried one day if that's what God allows. Um, that there are, there can be consequences from that, because then they grow up, thinking like, oh yeah, well, y'all got a divorce, so it, must not be that big a deal. Anyway, let me keep moving. So focus on myself, or focus on yourself, right? Next thing, focus on yourself, for yourself and your kids. That was kind of the next thing I remember. My dad talking to my father about him, my second mother, my mother, surrogate mother, plenty of friends. Great Orthodox brother who's a recent friend to me. Named Moses, grateful to God for that brother, grateful to God for my brother, Gorilla Locks. A lot of guys in the Divorced Dads group. Just a lot of people in general. Another brother, Dustin, a bunch of guys whose names I can't even list. But working on kind of four different things I can think of, and different things can go under, like financially can go under, mentally and physically, working and stuff like that. But mentally working on myself, emotionally working on myself, spiritually working on myself, physically working on myself. So mentally, really kind of being in a good place, went to a therapist, once, kind of, engaged her afterwards. I probably would do that again over time, especially if I'm, looking at another relationship or something like that, want to make sure I'm together mentally and emotionally, making sure, and that's going to go into my next topic about being grateful. Cause this is now going over 25 minutes. I do apologize. But, so the mental aspect, trying to be mentally strong, excuse me, being emotionally strong, right? There are times when a person can be sad, right? So, I've heard people talk about marriage as being like, divorce is being almost like a death, right? And there's stages of grief, right? So there's usually, usually the initial like shock or surprise, especially if it's not expected, or even if it is expected sometimes. The initial shock, then you kind of go through like this stage of like almost anger, like, why, with yourself, sometimes with that person. And then sometimes like a depression, like just overwhelmed with sadness and stuff like that, right? And I'm sure there's other stages that I'm missing. And that's kind of the thing about divorce. Like when, my ex first told me, like, I remember those first few nights, like I said, it was literally the week of my daughter's third birthday. She was going to be 3. That was Friday, May 21st of this year. And she told me after like a counseling session, and then like I couldn't even talk to her like after that month. I think it was a Monday night we had a counseling session. That Tuesday I couldn't even talk to her. That Wednesday, I think she was like, yeah, I'm done, this, that, and the third. All she said, whatever. And like those next few nights, man, like couldn't eat well, couldn't sleep well, thoughts are racing. You're trying to like process everything and think like, oh no, like, okay, she says she's done, but we can make it last. We can fight through this, right? Because we're Christians, right? We're strong. We can do this. We went through tough stuff before. But she was done, got a lawyer not too many weeks later. And, so like, it's one of those things where, it's an emotional thing. But the thing that was interesting, man, like I never cried. I remember getting on my knees in front of her. It was kind of comical now, but I remember telling us like if I could cry, I remember getting on my knees in front of her. Was like, if I could cry right now, I would, but I really don't want you to leave me. And I think I was probably a little more emotional like with her, but I never cried about it. I never was like, I know I've interacted with some guys in the Divorced Dads group who like, they're like depressed, right? Crying, constantly thinking of her, their ex, and whatever else they're going through with this real depression. And I'm not trying to make light of it, but for me, it was like, I don't want it. It's sad. It's terrible. But dang, man, you got to go do you. Like, now I just need to put my best foot forward for my children and myself, right? It is what it is. I can't respect you for it. I'm not going to respect you. Like, fortunately, we've been able to be amicable. And hopefully we'll be able to do that for the next, 13 years of my son's life while he's, still under our roofs, and Roofs. I think that's plural for roof. And my daughter for the next 14 years, or 15 years or whatever it is, so she's 18 too. And yeah, because we want to be amicable. We want to make sure things are going to work for us to co-parent well. Um, but we're not gonna ever be friends. We're not gonna. It's not a like a I'm gonna come hang out with you or something like that. Like I'm on that thing where I've heard of people getting divorced and they're like, oh yeah, so um, I'm still cool with my ex and stuff like that. Not me. Like like I don't believe in divorce. So especially I love that woman. To the very end. I still loved her. So I'm not gonna do that friend stuff. Like you got to go do you. I'm gonna respect it. So salute whatever all that good stuff. But I'm not going, so let's say if there's something going on at the kid's school or some type of function that she creates or something like that. Oh yeah, you can come and stuff like that. No, because that's like in my mind, for me to not ever get back in the mindset or a connection where I want to love her again, because that mess really that hurt. I mean, I didn't cry about it, but it did hurt. I don't want to go in that mindset because she probably gonna fall in love with another dude someday. It's gonna be weird and hurtful. I've been had this intimate relationship with her. I'm not just talking about sexual, but this person she knows my worst habits, my secrets, um my mistakes, all my regrets, all that stuff. And then like to see you, moving on and with another dude and all this stuff. Like, I don't know, she's with a dude. I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying when that day comes, like I can't be friends with that. Like I'm not gonna no, I don't no, we're not gonna ever eat together. We're not gonna break bread together, no fellowship, no nothing. It's what's going on with the kids. I'm trying to work on my side hustles to provide, child support when that time comes. Financially, what we gotta do for them. What you want to do is, hey, when can I get them? When can you get them? That kind of stuff. I might even talk about, the divorce, proceedings and that kind of stuff when, making, one person the primary versus, 50-50 custody and all that stuff when, some point. But anyway, my whole point being is that I got to move on. So I had to cut all ties. Oh, I'm like hitting the table. I had to cut all ties, like, period. Like I went so far as to the point, and some people may think it's petty, and maybe it is. But for me, like stuff that she even bought me in the past, like, clothes and stuff. She would buy me a lot of clothes and stuff like that because I'm just not one the shopper at the time. I had to get rid of that stuff. So anyway, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, I had to I said earlier, I'm on the path of being an Orthodox Christian. That was a journey I started back in 2016, I think, but 2017, I became a catechumen in the Orthodox Church of America. And that was kind of another issue, between me and her. She kind of felt like it wasn't Christianity. Somebody told her, that it was a cult. And I'm like, yeah, Orthodoxy came before Protestantism and Catholicism. So we can disagree on, theological aspects. Obviously, in the Orthodox Church, I'm going to talk to my parents about this. My kids' godparents. Orthodoxy is like Catholicism, and tradition is traditional. The tradition with the big T, right? So it is not just like Christianity is in the five solas, and so this is not a really religious channel, religious video, but that is, there's like the five solas in Protestantism. There's certain aspects in Catholicism, but Catholicism and the Orthodox Church or Orthodoxy, tradition is very big. So like taking up the Eucharist, and other things. I'm not gonna get all of that, but I'm on that path, religious wise, right? So I want to work on myself spiritually, and the mentally, emotionally, and the physically really goes along with the spiritual. It's all connected. And physically trying to work on, doing better with my eating habits, trying to get, back into exercising. Those things I'm working on. It's not an easy thing for me. Because, I love to eat, you can see my cheeks, all big and, got my belly and all that kind of stuff. But like I said before, I think that played a part into it. I think, for her, see me getting, gain weight, not taking care of myself, then I'm not making, more money, all this other stuff, all of it adds together, to make a person say, well, I'm done. So focus on myself, focus on myself, for myself and my kids. My kids are so funny. They provided me with encouragement. Even when things, were, kind of like very sad for me. So initially, the breakup, I'm trying to like find another place, and I found like this little cheap, kind of not the best location. Person who let me rent it from, they didn't even want me to stay in it, but that's all they had, and that was I needed something, right? And I couldn't even let my kids come in because it was just that bad. Like it just was not a place, not conducive to my children being in there. And finally got another apartment that, it was much better, space and all that kind of stuff. And my kids, they have a house with their mom. And they come to my apartment. I didn't think nothing of it. I wasn't gonna be like, oh, look at my apartment, trying to make it like it's a big deal. Like I ain't got no pictures up on the walls. They had time, there was no real toys. I think I had bought like a couple of Dollar General, stuff I could get. My mom would help or something like that. My father, those may help. And then had my kids come over, and my children, man, the thing I love about kids, and I think the great thing about it is that it's not the great thing, but one aspect of the divorce while they're young, like I remember, and I'm gonna get on my point in a minute, that I told an old coworker of mine at Staples, and I remember him telling me, he's like 18, 19-year-old young guy. So he said, man, that's it. I'm sorry to hear that you're going to go to a divorce. He said, I'm not sure it's going to make you feel any better. He said, but I can tell you, my parents got a divorce when I was a kid. I was 3 years old. I don't even remember them being together. He said, my sister was older, but she remembered, right? So it didn't really emotionally have any effect on me. And that's the one thing I will say I'm grateful for that aspect, right? Like, she wanted to be, and maybe that was another reason she did decide to do it now. She's like, well, they're young, they won't, it won't affect them much. I don't know, I don't care. But the one thing is that I am grateful to God that they're 3 and 5. At the time my son was 4, and it hadn't really had that effect. Like, so they're not emotional about that. They're not like, they don't come home like my apartment. Hey, I come out, you and mommy aren't together anymore. The only sad thing is sometimes, it's kind of one of those sad consequences of it. I heard Adele talk about this recently. I'll probably do a video on that next, where she was, saying the same thing. Like, you go from, seeing your kid every day to not seeing your child every day. In my case, my two children every day. That mess hurts. Like, for a while, I had to like stop looking at like Facebook memories and stuff of them and their mother and me, or the few times I had pictures with her and stuff like that, because that mess is just like, it's sad. Like, like I'm having to text when I can, see my kids. She's having to text me on when she can see them, when she wants them back. Let's, figure about when you can pick them up from like, this dance recital, this karate, or this, like, in my mind, I was expecting to be with her till death do me part and raise kids up where we both saw them every day. I had been there the first 3 years of my daughter's life. I've been there every day. Well, just about every day, except like they were visiting with somebody. Same with my son. First, almost 5 years of his life, I've been there every day. So then to go through a divorce, and then, lawyers and stuff, they start writing up them daggum, divorce papers, and, she's going to be the primary. So, whenever you get, make final decisions, she's going to have the final say so. Excuse my language, but what the hell? Like, I remember just thinking to myself, like, dang, man, like, as far as marriage is concerned, show, hey, anybody who's getting married, or people who are watching, people like my subscribers and other folks who are viewing right now, Gorilla Locks, appreciate you, brother. Or anybody else join the chat, show them this video, man. Like, my thing is I probably will tell every new person who's gonna get married, like, take your butt to a divorce court, watch how hard that mess is. Because I was fortunate and my ex was fortunate. We were able to agree on stuff before it went that route. But how sad it is that, for those of us who are intentional parents, intentional fathers, intentional mothers, had to wake up one day and say, man, I can't even wake up and roll over and see my babies today. I can't even roll over or put them down to bed tonight. I can't even hug them and kiss them because this is what you wanted to do. You know what I'm saying? Like, that mess is, it really is, Gorilla Locks. It's sad. And that's why I see, I'm kind of like, I understand now why more and more people, me and Gorilla Locks, you're my age. A lot of brothers and sisters, they're like, I ain't doing that marriage thing. A lot more folks are not religious today anyway, but more spiritual, because I think it's a Christian thing, in my opinion, But Cass is like, I ain't trying to get married. Like, the money I got to spend on that. These lawyers are expensive. Then the mess gets real bitter at the end. Fortunately, me and her were able to get our lawyers. They worked it all out and stuff like that. I didn't get what I wanted. I really didn't. Like, if I got what I wanted, joint, 50-50 custody, joint and legal, Um, but like I said, it is what it is. I got peace of mind through it all, joy through it all, whatever. And the last thing about that, is having kids, who are blessed. Like I was talking about with the apartment, they would come in, they just like, Daddy, I like your apartment. This is a nice apartment. I really, really, I didn't at the time I even had beds in it for them, right? No couches, nothing. Like I think I had my little mattress in the back that I was laying on. They they didn't care. They were happy to be with their daddy. Like, ooh, I can't tell you how much that is a blessing to have your kids love you that much that like they are just like they just love you. Okay, this video is going 40 minutes. I'm trying to keep it at 45. My bad. I appreciate y'all being with me. Um, so okay, so focus on yourself. Focus on yourself for yourself and your kids. Um, Focus on yourself, meaning mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically. No hatred or anger towards my ex. And my man Gorilla Lock said, boy, he dropping dimes over here. Kids don't see the struggle. They are just happy to see you. Amen. And that's the thing about it is, you know, um, they really don't. Like there's no, you know, Daddy, and like sometimes my son would be kind of like, Dad, can we get this toy? And I'm like, I ain't got the money for that right now, whichever, even like a little small little toy, right? $5 even. But he had me cracking up one time when he said I didn't have the time, I didn't have a microwave. And so I would heat his milk up in a pot, that I had gotten from a family member with water. I was like, I was that broke. They had no money, right? And on the oven, I'm heating that bad boy up. And he's there. We had to wait like 5 to 10 minutes to get that thing just right. And he was like, every one time he came over, he said, Daddy, do you have a microwave? And I was like, yeah, I really was lying to him, but he saw right through it. I said, yeah, so I got one. I just got to go get it. He said, so what you're saying is that you really don't have one. Man, that was the funniest thing I'd ever heard. And my boy is just hilarious. I had to pop his butt sometimes. I don't really have to pop him that much, actually. It's my daughter who's the fighter. But that I love them two jokers to death. They, like I said, they keep your spirits lifted. Your mother can't stand me, but them two, like y'all mine. So I'm just so grateful to God for them jokers. I know, laugh out loud, right, Gorilla Locks? Kids can be funny as anything, man. I remember hearing Jeff Foxworth, the comedian my dad put me on years ago, once said, I think we learn more from our children than they learn from us. And I'm kind of like, you know what? I can kind of see that now. But anyway, so no hate, but no hatred or anger towards my ex, man. Like, disappointed, yeah. Don't respect her, no. But I'm gonna keep it, try and like she's been doing the same thing. We try to keep it as amicable as possible, for our children. So I think in that sense we respect each other. Like, yeah, you helped me bring these two people that I love in the world. And I think she was a great mother. I think she was a great wife. Even if she don't can't say the same about me. It is what it is. But I don't hate her. There's no anger towards. I don't have any negative thoughts in my mind about like F her. I hope she get hit by a bus. Nah. I want my kids to have their mother till they own in life. She could be a great grandmother, all that stuff. Yeah, you could see my boy saying that right. Realize that boy's a trip. He loved you when we be seeing you above us. So I got about a minute and a half left. So let me hit these last two. Okay, so focus on yourself. Focus on yourself for yourself and your kids. No hatred or anger towards the ex. Last thing, man, I'm grateful to God for peace and joy through it all. Like, and it's two gratefuls. Grateful to God for peace and joy through these trials and tribulations. Grateful for community, so family and friends that have held me down, even to this time period. All this time period when my ex said she was done, I wasn't, like I said, I was fortunate. I didn't go through any depression. I wasn't like, like I said, I had no anger, no, flipping you off. No, I think at the beginning I was angry, but like it didn't last. It was just like how sad this is that you leaving me on the stuff that you leave me on. Like, I guess she was thinking like, you're not gonna change. She been putting up with so-called 10 years or whatever. Well, we didn't quite make it to 10 years a month, shy of 10 years. And just how sad that was, to me, but I had peace through it all. Like, even though I had like some, anxiety, like what was the future going to hold as the days and the weeks and the months passed by, people tell you time heals all wounds. Mine was maybe a little shorter than most and I'm still healing, but like I really wasn't mad about it, but I really am grateful for community, man. Like, men, as we get older, we really don't have friends like that. Okay, I might make this 46 minutes. I'm sorry. Because I want just to put this in here real quick. We might have friends like Okay, that's my boy. I'm gonna text him real quick. There's some dudes who are good at like keeping up. They go eat out regularly or meet up or whichever. A lot of dudes, though, we get busy with life, working, and our kids, and trying to keep up with our woman and stuff like that. For those of us who still got a woman or married, um, so we don't have time to go like hang out, like, hey man, the game coming on this weekend or something like that. Now I knew guys who do and who did. My father used to do it with a men's Bible study when I was growing up as a kid in Maryland. We would meet up with them guys on the regular. Um, but when we left Maryland, my dad didn't stay like best friends with them. Um, but it's a blessing to have men that you can say are friends of yours or whichever. And I have a few of them. Like I said, that's my guy. I hadn't been able to talk to him on a regular basis, but I consider that a friend. He was a neighbor of mine, but that was a friend of mine, and is a friend of mine. And a couple of other dudes who financially would, hey man, what you need? You need something? You need me to run you? You need some gas money? You need something to eat? Like understood where I was at and was there for me. And not everybody can have that. And some of them had, their wives were in on that. So that's the thing I would say too, man, is like, grateful to God for the peace and the joy through it all. Grateful to God for community, because you got to have community. If you don't have those people that can really be there for you when you need them to be there for you, that's going to be tough. And not everybody has that, but Lord have mercy, do we need it? And during the pandemic too, I'm grateful to God I had people who were there for me. I mean, my parents were there. Like I'm saying, like thousands of dollars there. You know what I'm saying? Because I was transitioning into my teaching job and didn't have anything where I was, I had significantly amount of money, 3 to 6 months expenses put back, like Dave Ramsey would say. But here it was, my folks held me down, my parents held me down, but really good friends held me down. My kids' godparents held me down. I'm grateful to God on that note. So anyway, thank you for sticking with me for, like I said, going on 47 minutes, even though this is supposed to just be 20 minutes. So I do apologize. But again, continue to check back with Operation Fatherhood channel. Continue to try to, build this channel to be a blessing to fathers, my children, Elena and Elijah, and to the next generation. God bless you. Deuces. Peace.